everybody, and as promised, I am bringing you some ranked replays here. It's actually a double header. This first one is kind of short. It's in the 10-minute area for a battle, and as the title implies, both of these are from the Jaws of Defeat episodes, which means things will look particularly grim at some point and inevitably turn around. Now, this first battle, obviously I'm taking part, and before I go any further, so far, at least from rank 10 through 6, I've gone exclusively in the Henri. Kind of similar to last season where I went exclusively in the Kitakazi, though with the introduction of CVs, I figured a cruiser might be a little bit more survivable. And as it's turned out, the Henri is pretty strong, at least in ranks 10 through 6. I have been a little bit surprised to not see as many CVs as I thought, although I have broken through now and I'm at rank 5. And certainly in the 5 through 2, CVs are much more common and things get substantially more difficult. But in this first battle, I kind of will play a little ping pong with the camera because though I do reasonably well and help my team, a lot of this battle hinges on the performance of Funk 0701, I'll just call him Funk, in the Minotaur, and you can see him right there in front of me a little bit. So I wasn't able to get the replay specifically from his POV, so I spliced together my own replay where I hover the camera over him a little bit, and so we'll bounce back and forth, and you'll see some of what he saw and some of what I saw. There'll also be a little bit of jumping time-wise, just to catch as much of the action back and forth. So, we move right now to Funk's perspective, as I believe it was Flambas who theorized that perhaps the Minotaur could become rather important in this season in Ranked, considering Destroyer's vulnerability to CVs, and the Minotaur, if I'm not mistaken, with a full AA build, is the most potent anti-air ship in the game. Could be wrong, but either way, if I am, it's right near the top 2 or top 3. And though in this battle you won't get a chance to see it, because obviously there is no CV, I have seen quite a few. Now, right off the bat, our Harakumo gets torpedoed by the enemy's rental gearing. Yes, now, that brings up another area of contention that I've seen, heard a little bit about, and that was the introduction by Wargaming of rental ships into rank. Now, my experience to this point, without knowing for sure one way or another, is that there are a tremendous amount of people running rental ships who don't have no experience in tier 10 ships. Now, I don't necessarily think that they're trolling and that they actually have a tier 10 version of the ship that they're renting to bring in, but the performance I've seen so far by a fair amount of the people in rental ships leads me to believe that we're not dealing, at least in large part, with a whole bunch of people who've only made it to tier 7 or tier 8 and have never played tier 10 and are renting it for rank. I do think there is a fair amount of people who are taking the rental ships because they either want an experience in a ship that they don't yet have and they do have experience at tier 10, or they may in fact just be trolling and have the ship and want people to think they don't know what they're doing. But 4 minutes in, there goes our Daring, who went to the opposite cap and ran into 3 enemy ships. So, already at 4 minutes in, we're down by 2 of our 3 destroyers, and the enemy ship hasn't lost anything. So, at the very least, we got a cap, so there is that. Now, with this, forgive it being a little bit distracting, but you can hear and see on the screen what's going on with my ship, with me and the Henri, even though we're hovering here over Funk and his Minotaur. And getting to some of the strengths of the Henri, Jingles did a video recently and made a real brief comparison to a well-hidden tank destroyer in World of Tanks, and certainly there are many aspects of the Henri that are applicable in that comparison. Basically, you give yourself a really, really good opportunity at, if you do lose, preserving a star, but helping your team a lot if you're able to keep your guns firing. And the 240mm guns are great. Really quick before I continue, the Minotaur pops out, and there goes our third and final destroyer. And we are now down 4 ships to 7 in just over 5 minutes into this battle. So you can see it ain't looking that great. We switch back to my perspective as I try to focus down the Montana, who's got himself down to half health. I'll get back to the Henri. So keeping your guns firing, really great. You can do damage almost the entire battle. Light fires, if you find a broadside cruiser, which I will, switching to the AP can be particularly devastating. However, the most important element of this, I mean in any battle, whether it be randoms, ranked, clan battles, but the strength of the Henri is absolutely, yes, it's a flanker, yes, it's meant to be seen, but being shot at. And this is something I've talked about with a lot of people. You can do a lot of damage, and it certainly helps your team if you're able to secure kills, but the more enemy guns that are pointing at you, again, as long as you're able to somewhat successfully be actively maneuvering and dodging incoming shells, that's fewer guns that are pointed at your teammates. So it's a real benefit in that regard too. So we work down the enemy Montana, and I put a couple final salvos in with my reload booster, and our team gets the first kill. Now here, we come across a rather humorous and unfortunate event, sequence for the enemy Salem. It appears to me as though in an attempt to find himself a good hiding spot next to an island, he's gotten himself good and stuck. And I've worked my way now far enough around the enemy flank that I just have a motionless broadside of an enemy Salem. So, obviously, switching to the AP, don't get the kill. That actually went to Funk, but I managed to get 3 citadels and put him down pretty easily. So, we pulled ourselves back a little bit. And at this point, things slow down a little bit for me. You can see him kind of on the outside of being very mindful of that enemy rental gearing that was somewhere in front, and I thought, okay, we're okay. Oh boy. Yeah, there goes our Des Moines to the enemy Minotaurs, and our Montana also eats a few. So we went from, okay, we can do this to, oh man, come on guys. And also, from that rental gearing, he manages to get 1 torpedo hit on Funk and his Minotaur, but fortunately, that is it for him. So at this point, I realized, okay, we've got to keep pushing. We've got to make this happen, and that's when the enemy Minotaur shows up. Takes a huge hit from our friendly Montana, but here you can see the British superhero at work, and that, as lightly armored as the Minotaur is and as vulnerable as it is, that is absolutely its saving grace. So here, I kind of wait on hitting my reload booster, thinking I can put him away quick enough, and I probably should have done it sooner. I do end up getting him, but he gets his torpedoes off on our Montana. So jump back slightly in time here, and we're going to take up the perspective of Funk and the Minotaur. Now this is right as the enemy Minnow kills our Des Moines and gets a few torps on the Montana. But I wanted to jump back to his perspective, because though I do pretty well, and I've done alright so far, 90k damage, it is, the battle really turns right here, and it has everything to do. Well, no, I'll take that back. It has a tremendous amount to do with Funk's play and his decision making in his minnow. It also has a tremendous amount to do with the enemy who have also flanked around to the south west and are coming in and starting to push the cap that Funk is in. The mistake that they make, and I believe it's pointed out in chat a little bit too, is both of their DDs get maybe a little bit brave and think, oh, half-health Minotaur. The two of us should be able to handle him. Well, that enemy gearing finds out in the grand total of about 10 seconds. Yeah, nah, that ain't right. that's not something that happened, and here comes the wall of skill. And though very impressive a game Funk had, this torpedo beats. Whew, right there. That was super, super impressive. Now, he's got this Shima in a really bad way. I'm guessing he's got his hydro active. And I'm also chipping in with some help right there. Get the Shima down to a one-shot, and there he goes. Funk finishes him off. Simultaneously, the enemy Zhao decides to pop out from around the corner. And not only is Funk able to get his torpedoes off, but I'm also able to contribute a little bit and chip away, get a nice 5k salvo there, and get him worried a little bit about me instead of turning that AP on Funk, which can be devastating. And fortunately, as it turns out, Funk has a great torpedo salvo, finishes the Zhao with a devastating strike, and at this point, we have now successfully flipped the odds. We are now up on points and up on ships. So I'm going to switch back to me, because right about here I decide to start chasing down this the rental gearing who made it to the end of the battle where none of his other team did. Now, the Henri is not a specialist in DD hunting. Fortunately, I did have my reload booster ready, and I was able to chunk him for most of his health. However, you know, if you don't have a torpedo reload ready, you can be a bit vulnerable with the 11-second reload on these 240s. That being said, if you actually land shots, a good 4 or 5k per salvo will devastate a destroyer in a pretty short amount of time. So, that being said, I throw torps on either side of the island, kind of expecting him to come back out here. And I push to the right-hand side for a moment, but I realize that if he was continuing to this side, he would have spotted me already. So I quick turn back to my left, figuring that he's either sitting directly behind this island, or he's egressing as quickly as he possibly can opposite. And as it turns out, he is sitting back here. I get one really solid salvo, start a fire, get him down to a one-shot, and Funk finishes him. And that was the first of the 2 battles I'm about to show, where you can see, you know, no matter what the situation is, and even I myself in that battle, initially the shoulders slumped a bit. Things looked pretty grim from early on, but you persevere, you don't give up, and you can turn what seems to be a surefire loss into a win. So, top 2 on the team, very deservedly. Funk gets top of the team with 4 kills, and I follow suit. And you can see here, not the most amount of damage, 133k, so not tremendous, but the influence was felt, and certainly the amount of times I was spending with 2, 3, even 4, I think at one point, enemy ships targeting me helped with the rest of my enemy team next battle. For the second of 2 in this installment, it is on North. And again, obviously, if I'm going top to bottom, I'm in the Henri. Now, this map has introduced a couple of strategies that I have seen work pretty well, of course, depending on individual execution, but the first being the majority of the fleet goes, if you're in the south spawn, you go hard through B to A, and with that, it kind of requires a very aggressive push and movement from the majority of your team, as early in the game, what you'll tend to be doing is giving up and being down 2 caps to 1. But what can typically happen, as very often a lot of teams will split, is the enemy team, the force that goes to A will be smaller and you can overwhelm them and then kind of encompass, you'll take A and work around to C. The other strategy is one that my clan used a lot in clan battles last season, which is sending something like a Henry and 1 destroyer to the close cap and everyone else to C. And the job of the 2 ships here at B would be to take the cap and defend it, while the rest of the fleet pushes hard through C and overwhelms the enemy team there. This battle doesn't really follow either of those strategies, and we end up kind of paying a price. Now you'll see our pink Shimakaze headed to C, not entirely alone, but certainly not reinforced heavily, as basically it's only the Conqueror and the Republique backing him up. So if he decides to push in hard, that might spell disaster, and we'll see here shortly that it in fact does. Now, picking up again from where I left off last time, I feel like, it's equally as important in this ship to not only be doing as much damage as often as you possibly can, but to be spotted. Keep yourself at range, but get as many of the enemy guns firing at you as possible. And yep, there goes our Shima inside the first 2 minutes, basically. So, not a great start. Enemy has taken A, we've taken B, and the enemy is contesting C. So, gonna do what I can and do Henry things and try to get myself out to the flank. Again, there you see, with my priority target, I've got 2 looking at me, and I notice the smoke screen pop up. So I know that one of the enemy destroyers has smoked up the enemy Worcester. And also, we have a Minotaur there in the middle. So, firing initially at the Worcester, now at long range, because of the shell velocity and the shell arcs of American guns, I don't fear them tremendously. Hargumo pops up here. Yes, I have AP loaded, but better to get whatever damage I can while he is visible. And there, the enemy Minotaur pops up. Now, this it's comparable in certain respects to what happened with the enemy Salem in the last game, but there's something I don't quite understand. So you see when the Minotaur pops up there, he's taking a little bit of damage, but he's full health. I get a couple citadels, do a significant amount of damage, but remember me mentioning that the saving grace of the Minotaur was the British super heal. So he drops off detection. I decide to continue pushing around this flank to try and get him spotted again and see if I can finish him off. But I absolutely anticipate that the next time he pops up, he'll be at 2/3 health. Yeah, he right now what he's doing, he popped his heal, and as it turns out, that's not really the case. And even right now, I was like, well, definitely don't stop your enemy in the middle of them doing something stupid, but I couldn't quite understand what was going on. But again, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, who really cares? If I can get 1 minnow off the map, then that would definitely be a benefit to my team overall, especially considering we're still down one destroyer. So with that salvo of AP, he goes down, and again, I'm still in a little bit of shock. However, at this point, Though I do have one ship targeting me, I'm guessing it's the enemy Haragumo. But I drop off detection. He's probably still going to be in that little break between the islands. As our Hindenburg is pushing a little recklessly, this is when I decide to hit the throttle and get myself around this island, try and contribute in whatever way I can with my firepower against the Wooster and the enemy Yamato in the back. I did forget to mention this. Early on, we did spot the Henri, and you can see in the last known position there, he had started heading back west, but it gave me a bit of comfort as I realized he was basically on the opposite flank, and he looked to be continuing to head very far east, so I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of competition in that regard on this flank. So we end up catching the enemy Wooster, and what you see me doing here is something that I have started trying to do, especially if I use the reload booster, but if it is an angled cruiser, I will alternate between AP and HE. And there we go. Get the Wooster with that final salvo. But then here, the Henri pops up, and he's heading in my direction, which was definitely not something I anticipated. Meanwhile, we've lost the Hindenburg, we lost the Shima early, and I'm not sure what other cruiser we lost, but we lost another one, so we're down again, and if you look at the points, the enemy's almost doubled us up in points. So, once again, we are not looking like we're in great shape, and we're only almost 7 minutes into this game. So it turns into the type of situation again where got a Yamato to shoot at, might as well just try and do as much damage as I possibly can to salvage what I can and try and help my team. You can see the plethora of fire coming from that smoke screen. That's going to be the enemy Haragumo, and I also can tell he's got Yamamoto because of the tracers, which is something, to each their own. I have Yamamoto, I also have Halsey. I don't run the colored tracers. Oh, man. Okay, so here it is. I'll get back to the colored tracer thing in a moment. Here we go into a 1v1 with me and the enemy Henri. Thanks largely to that initial AP salvo that citadeled me at least once. He gave himself a pretty substantial HP advantage in this fight, and it only continues. I start to kind of work myself down, and I just burned my heel. So I have to wait another minute or so for that to come up. So, not looking too great. And he is doing the throttle play, as you're supposed to do. I immediately try to angle away and do the kiting thing, as that inherently gives you an advantage. And he starts to slightly turn out, so I switch to AP, get pretty solid salvo, 5k, but looking at my health, I've gotten a little bit of help from some friendlies there, which got us in the ballpark of more even, but I'm getting down there, and I'm getting down there quick. And again, with the shoulder slump thing, at this point, I'm kind of figuring, well, darn it, I'm kind of screwed, and I've only done 100k damage. Yeah, I've got a couple kills, but this battle does not look like it's going to go my way, especially seeing right now he's playing it about as well as you can, and seeing that he's firing the HE, gets a fire, I immediately put it out. I am down to sub 2k health. He's got himself well up over 10k. Man, thankfully my heal comes up, buys me some time, I light a fire on him, he immediately puts it out. So now, somehow, we find ourselves on par HP-wise, and it comes down to me getting one last solid salvo with HE, and I take him out. That, as I said before, I was really proud of that engagement, because 1v1 at a disadvantage in the same ship, and I came away with the victory, and acknowledged there by a teammate. That was nice. But I will fully concede that was a degree of luck there. His shooting seemed to be good. His maneuvering was really solid. But RNG kind of seemed to maybe favor me. And not even necessarily with my salvos, but more his salvos against me. There might have been a few there where his salvos straddled me. I know that I had a couple that, again, that's a tribute to his maneuvering. I missed. I totally whiffed on some of my shots, but enough smiling and patting myself on the back, because this game is not over. As you can see, we do have the cap advantage, but we're even on ships, and the enemy team still has almost a 300-point lead, and they've got a Kremlin, a Yamato, and a Haragumo. Now, I didn't look, and I think I take a look here, or close to here, at our Republic. He's got about half health. But the Yamato, I know, has substantially more than that. And what I'm doing here, yeah, I'm kind of taking it wide, but I wanted to buy myself at least enough time to get my other heal off, because I felt like there was no question that I was going to need it. And that's when the enemy Yamato pops up. And as you can see, he has 70-ish K health. And fortunately, not only did taking the long way around put me in a position and buy me enough time to get my second heal off, which got me back up over 16k health, but it also put myself in a position where his turrets were facing our Republic, and I felt pretty much at ease to open up here, get a fire. Now what I'm waiting for here, and this is one that is very standard. There's the high caliber, nice. But I'm holding on to my reload booster, A, because I only have one left. But I was hoping he would put out his fire. He does not. It seems like he has fire prevention, as that fire looks like it's engulfing his superstructure. And if you have fire prevention, which not only limits the chance of fire, but it limits the amount of fires that can burn to 3. Very often, that one fire that gets lit will appear in that way. It'll appear as a large fire. So there, at that point, I don't think he put the fire out, but we're getting to a point now. The enemy is up over 900 points, and that Yamato got worked down low enough that even though he's probably got a repair ready, I burned my last reload hoping to get another fire, maybe 2 on him, and the combined firepower from me and our Republic will be enough, I'm hoping, to put this Yamato down, get the fire. Republic gets another solid salvo. We've got him down to 3k, 2k, and he did immediately extinguish the fire. So at this point, they're up to 930. I light another one, and I'm thinking to myself, alright, we got the Yamato. So that will buy us a little bit of time. It drops them from about 940 to 878. Both the destroyers take each other out, and now it's just me and the Republic against this Kremlin. Now the Kremlin is on the very edge of my firing range, which on the one hand is good, because it means his accuracy, if he decided to swing his guns my way, will be at the lowest. But as you can see, it also makes it equally difficult for me to punish him in any kind of substantial way. And our Republic, you'll see him pop up here in a second, he's not looking too healthy. So again, the enemy gets up over 900, now we're following closely behind. But in my mind, trying to do some quick math, if he does end up killing our Republic, that will give them a distinct advantage. And even though we do have 2 caps to their 1, it looks like here we drew even finally, and there we take a 2-point lead. If he kills him, that might very well put the game not necessarily out of reach for us, but it'll turn into a brawling match between him and me. Fortunately, it doesn't come to that. as even though our Republic might have been going for the ram, the Kremlin was smart enough to avoid it and turn away, but he showed broadside, and our Republic finishes him. And that is another victory. And the other kind of cool part about this is these two battles were back-to-back for me. So it didn't wrap up my night last night in ranked battles, but it was a heck of a way. I'll put it this way, I needed to take a break when it was done. Much better in the damage department, 180k damage, 4 kills, top of the team, and an engagement where I walked away on the plus side fighting an enemy Henry, and not only did I do everything the way I needed to, or most everything, but got really lucky as well. And that ended up playing a significant role in our team being able to turn the tide. I hope that you enjoyed this double installment of From the Jaws of Defeat. Until next time, this is Captain Happy, signing off.